Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It's Thursday, November 6th, 2025. It is somehow week 10. We are more than halfway down with the NFL season. That's just the season, not the actual games, which, of course, 17, the worst number there is. There's 17 games, but you can't be half done with those.
Pat will never, ever stop complaining about that.
You can either be less than half,
to you.
less than half, or more than half. But it's week 10. We're here to talk every game on the slate. Ravens at the Vikings, Lions at the Commanders, Rams at the 49ers. That's always a fun grudge match. They're sending the Falcons and Colts to Germany. All right. Whatever. That's to each their own. Free country. Patriots at Bucs. Entire loaded slate. But we will begin in Minnesota. And everyone has been listening to the show all year knows we've been impartial observers to the JJ McCarthy Minnesota Vikings quarterback. We don't have a dog in this fight. We're not at all we've been truthing JJ McCarthy a little bit. All right. And he's upset about it. He's very mad about the haters and the doubters. Denny Carter, tell us how he's been dealing with it.
Well, let me ask the listeners this. If you're watching on YouTube, if we're such haters of JJ McCarthy, why are we wearing Vikings purple today?
That's true.
Because you're all wearing purple. I have purple on too.
Yeah, even Kyle.
Answer me that. You can't answer.
They're Carson Wentz memorial purples.
Yeah, Denny says that, and he does this mic drop. That sounded real cool, I'm sure.
That's right. So JJ McCarthy has an alter ego, apparently.
And I'm already cringing from so much secondhand embarrassment. I can barely listen to you get through this.
Mm-hmm. It actually could be worse. Could be a worse alter ego than Garth Brooks's alter ego from the late 90s, known as Chris Gaines.
Stop.
It could be a Chris Gaines situation here. Even worse, though.
Is it a Mr. Unlimited situation?
So it's close. So I was wondering actually, because I saw the highlights of that Vikings game last week, and he has this weird look on his face. McCarthy has this like scrunched up look.
Yeah.
And then it was tweeted out by this Viking social media or whatever, like dog. He's a dog.
Dude, this is like big time Chihuahua at the dog park trying to tell everyone he's not 9 pounds energy.
It's the worst facial expression I think I've ever seen on an athlete. So okay, here it is. He calls the alter ego 9. Okay. It's a reference to his jersey number. That's good. He said it's a product of the anger built up over missing 23 of his first 25 NFL games because of injury. Quote, I kind of love feeding that wolf, McCarthy said.
New Russell Wilson just dropped is all I can say.
Because my entire life at the University of Michigan, there was a smiley face on my hand. And if you smile and if you have fun, you're going to play better and all that, which is true. But I also think there's a lot of power that comes from the built-up anger that you can transmute into your performance. Listen, guys, so what's happening here is last week against the Lions, he transmuted his anger into 150 passing yards.
All right. Come on. That's some hating right there.
My skin is crawling right now. Like, can we take all of the anime off of this kid's eyeball? No more, JJ.
Not even kidding. When I tried to get through this article, this is not a bit. I kept looking away because I can't read the next sentence of this. This is so embarrassing.
Oh my gosh.
Can you make up his mind? Is he a meditation guy or is he an anger guy? Can we make up our minds here?
That's a good, yes, right. Because his whole thing was I meditate before the game. I find Zen before the game. But now he has a scrunched up face and he's 9. So I don't know.
True. New Russell Wilson just dropped. That's off the field. The Vikings are hoping he's a new Russell Wilson on the field. Russell Wilson, despite becoming a meme, one of the better quarterbacks of the past 15 years in the NFL. The Vikings are going to need that as they take on the Baltimore Ravens this Sunday, looking more like the Ravens of old since their Week 7 bye. Baltimore heads to Minnesota, aforementioned Minnesota. There's roughly 3.5-point favorites, Denny Carter, against a Vikings team trying to figure out what they have at quarterback besides an anime watcher, besides 9. The Ravens were a quarterback smash spot before their open date. They've been much tighter since. It's been a soft schedule. Caleb Williams, Tua Tagovailoa. What kind of matchup is this for JJ McCarthy? What kind of approach are we expecting after last week's highly mixed return from Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah, we'll start with the approach. So the Vikings last week against the Lions went really run heavy with McCarthy back under center. They had been 8th in early down neutral pass rate with Carson Wentz at quarterback. They were bottom 3 last week. I tried to parse, Nine's performance.
Time out. No, please don't.
The short of it is pretty good on intermediate throws, really bad on short throws. He plays a Ravens defense that, if you look at the season-long stuff, they're really bad against the pass and the run, but definitely the pass. If you break that down to the last 2 or 3 games where they've been getting healthier on defense, they're top 10 in most metrics as a pass defense. I think the only way, like for fantasy purposes, I feel like the only way McCarthy gets there is just the rushing here. And I think the Vikings will try to limit his dropbacks as much as possible.
To illustrate your point on pass rate over expected with and without J.J. McCarthy, and this is kind of a blunt force stat, but Justin Jefferson, J.J. McCarthy's return, he does score a touchdown. He catches 6 passes. He posted 27 fewer yards than he did in any of Carson Wentz's starts. And as people who saw these games, Carson Wentz was atrocious, totally atrocious. We're talking god awful. And he still was much, much better for Justin Jefferson's fantasy value. 2 or 3 games with J.J. McCarthy, Justin Jefferson's been under 50 yards receiving. So just not been a great development so far for Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and company. So that's the J.J. McCarthy side of this. What's the Lamar Jackson side of this, Kyle? I don't even know why I'm at. I mean, Lamar, you're playing him, but is this a good matchup? Vikings very, very aggressive. Sometimes they get home and sack you a million times like they did last week against Jared Goff. Sometimes they give up a million big plays. What kind of matchup is this for Lamar Jackson?
Big plays. Do the big plays. We're doing big plays this week. We know that throughout the early and really almost all of his career, the one probably biggest hang-up with Lamar Jackson is that if you brought pressure, specifically if you blitz, he really struggled against that for years on end. Even in his MVP seasons, that was one thing that maybe limited him from being the best quarterback in the NFL, even as he was winning MVPs. That has not been the case over the past 2 years. This year, he easily leads the league in completion rate against the blitz. He easily leads the league in yards per attempt against the blitz, 7 touchdowns to 1 interception. And of course, as you'd expect, the Vikings under Brian Flores they are the most blitz heavy defense in the NFL. Also not a particularly close race. They blitz 5% more than any other team. And I don't think that's something that's going to change. I think they even had success with a very blitz heavy approach under Flores in Miami one time when they played Lamar Jackson. He's not that same Lamar Jackson from 3 or 4 years ago. I think he'll kind of destroy these Vikings.
Speaking of not the same as 3 or 4 years ago, Mark Andrews, Denny Carter.
Yeah.
But boy, talk about getting away with it. 2 touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins. So Isaiah Likely, we had moved on. I'm in the Isaiah Likely Discord. Football players have Discords, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
Who was the guy with the Discord this week?
It was Kayshon Boutte. Revealed that I wanted to put that in the blurb, and I could not find a reporter reporting on it, because none of the reporters know what Discord is. They've all been in the game for a while. They don't know. Yeah, so the Likely Discord, I'm sure it literally exists.
So I've been in the Likely Discord. Our cope was always that he hasn't been healthy at the same time as Lamar Jackson. They were both healthy last week, Denny. Best game of the year by far. 3 catches, over 60 yards. But Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns. What is the latest on Mark Andrews versus Isaiah Likely?
I mean, the touchdowns were cool, but the usage was not great for Andrews. So last week, Andrews ran 1 more route than Likely, but Likely was targeted on 31% of his routes, while Andrews saw target on only 20% of his. Minnesota is a run funnel defense, so I think the pass volume here might be a little short for Ravens pass catchers. If things are, if things are neutral, barring some sort of weird game script, which could happen. I mean, I think any game involving JJ McCarthy /9 could have some weird game script. So, what was I saying? So Likely, yes.
It takes us all out of the show when you say 9.
I gotta stop. You
have to stop, but clearly don't ever call him McCarthy again. You can only call him.
I'm wearing my Vikings purple. I gotta respect my quarterback. So Likely, I think he might be a better play than Andrews this week.
I mean, listen, we're all thinking it. Maybe I don't know if Kyle is actually, but
no, I'm fine with this. Maybe Mark Andrews is a better bet to get away with it, but for what we care about, who earned the football more. If you want to bet on Likely there, that's
yeah, and he's healthier now. I feel like truly like they ramped him up, and now Likely is all the way back. Andrew sees those inside the 10 targets. That's hard to replace from like a PPR standpoint if you're Likely, but Likely is a decent play, especially for 14-team leagues.
This could be the week where maybe Isaiah Likely formalizes the takeover. And Aaron Jones is the big question mark in this game. Didn't practice Wednesday with his new shoulder injury. He did claim he was going to play. Aaron Jones striking me as the kind of player who's like, I'm going to play.
Yeah,
he doesn't play because he's missed a lot of time. But Aaron Jones, keep it locked to rotoworld.com. If he does not play, Jordan Mason will shift right back into that unsatisfying RB2 territory. Just a huge dud the entire time Aaron Jones has been out. But the usage has been too good. And if Aaron Jones does play, I'll probably get him into the top 24. Once again, adjusting to life without Jaden Daniels, the Commanders host the Lions as touchdown plus home underdogs, Kyle. Denny already gave his bit on what the Commandos look like with Marcus Mariota under center earlier this week. What do you expect to see with Marcus in his fourth start of the 2025 season?
Yeah, maybe the only change from Marcus Mariota start 1, or I guess Marcus Mariota start 3 versus 1 and 2, that they were a little less run heavy, but still run heavy in that next Mariota start. He's averaging like 200 passing yards per game. He does have multiple touchdowns, I believe, in all 3 starts. So, and maybe spreadsheet stuff, but also Jaden Daniels hasn't played that well this year. He has a higher completion percent over expected, and PFF has him with a higher accurate throw rate. He is still less efficient in terms of EPA per play because he likes to throw interceptions. He's been doing that a bit too much for a backup quarterback this year. But I do think as far as there's one receiver of note, like Terry McLaurin isn't playing this week, there's one receiver of note, Deebo Samuel. He'll still get it to Deebo Samuel for PPR scam points. He'll still get it to Zach Ertz for PPR scam points. I think the biggest issue will be, and this you can skip my next question, is that it will just kill the running game. Like, I think the fact that they don't have the ceiling that Jaden Daniels provides, even if Jaden Daniels wasn't playing well this year, it was still an improvement over Mariota, and it still made them feel like they could go out and beat teams like the Lions, even if it was not as likely as you would have thought last year when they quite literally beat the Lions. They're going to be beaten/blown out most weeks, and that is horrific for Jacoby Brissett, who is still running routes. He just cannot earn targets on his routes. To me, he is getting like 1.5 downs of work, and it's all early downs between the tackles on teams that aren't going to, or on an offense that isn't going to put him in position to score touchdowns. He's like barely holding on to RB3 value at this point. I think he can probably do better.
Yeah, that's the conundrum for JCM and JCM fantasy managers, is that it probably will be a run heavier Commanders offense in neutral game script, but neutral game script is not going to last very long. It's just going to be a disastrous offense environment. The Lions have always stopped the run well under Dan Campbell. They're doing so again this year. So there's just no real path to RB2 relevance for Krosky Merritt. Denny Carter, do you want to?
I was just going to say, I mean, if you're playing Ertz or Deebo, I mean, you're banking on just chase for the Commanders. And I
want
think
6 for 60, and you're not even really like hoping you get a touchdown. You're hoping you get a dozen clean PPR points.
That's just fantasy football. To me, that's how the game is meant to be played. It does not matter if you are good. Denny, the Lions were very good some games this year, very bad others. They're not the juggernaut that they were last year, but like last year, they're still extremely narrow. It's the same 3 or 4 guys, except maybe they're talking up Tesla again this week. What's going on with this Lions offense? What will the approach be against the Washington Commanders? Tesla.
The Lions are running sub scams. They have scams on top. The JMO scam was really fun. You're like, let's sneak in another scam. They did a little rider scam on this bill.
So many scams. They're going to be able to run some scams this week because they're just going to be able to do whatever they want. Like, Washington is technically a run funnel defense. They're seeing the 7th lowest pass rate over expected this season. The Lions are bottom 3 in pass rate over expected. So I think we're going to see a lot of running. That doesn't mean that Jared Goff and the pass catchers can't be efficient, though, because Washington's secondary stinks too. I think this is a game, with the Lions having a 28.5 point implied total. Just really, like, you don't see that very often. I think, this is like the green light to start David Montgomery. This is the green light to like get a little weird with JMO. They're going to score a lot of points. You're just hoping.
I would say it's also the green light to smash the under on that Lions team total because they're on the road and outdoors, and Jared Goff always disappoints.
Huh. I should have considered that. No, I mean,
Denny just stared into the abyss, thinking like, no long touchdowns for JMO again, huh? Right.
Yeah, no, that is an issue. Yeah, but they don't have much of a pass rush. So Jared Goff, I think he should be fine.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, like the Washington secondary is giving up the second highest adjusted yards per attempt. Like guys are getting there on little volume. Quarterbacks are, I should say.
Yeah, be an interesting game. Really need the Lions to get there. Denny and I, the bank examiner, he's no longer we can't ignore his calls anymore because now they're knocks at the door, and pretty soon the doors will be getting kicked in. The Rams and 49ers' latest grudge match will be occurring in Santa Clara. With the Niners operating as decisive home underdogs, Denny Carter, we remain unsure of just who might be under center for the 49ers, but that's nothing new. It looks like it's just going to be Mac Jones again. Mm-hmm. I do not know what has happened to Brock Purdy's toe, but
they're looking for it powerful.
Yeah, but wow, something very, 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 very bad has happened to Brock Purdy's toe. So we think it'll be Mac Jones probably again. That could change. But who is and isn't producing as we wait for Purdy to make his long-awaited return?
So I looked at the last couple games with Mac Jones under center. George Kittle is being targeted on an unusually low 18% of his routes over those two games. I mean, that could break open at any point, but I feel like Mac Jones is less a Kittle guy than Purdy was or has been. I also want to mention that Juwan Jennings over those two games has been targeted on 24% of his routes. He's seen 34% of the team's air yards. He's running cold with that opportunity, but I think it's quietly like a decent a profile headed into this game. And I wanted to mention when these teams played last time, the Niners were very run heavy. I'm sorry, very pass heavy, 5% over their pass rate. And Mac Jones threw 50 passes. I don't know. I don't know if you can pencil him in for 50 passes, but maybe 40 plus. I feel like that's in the range.
Did you guys notice Mac Jones's 23rd straight start?
Yeah, I know.
49ers.
When you made the joke earlier or something similar, I thought you were going to say, like, yep, and now we're coming up on the second season of Mac Jones as a starter. So I'm glad you circled back around to get it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Who's he going to start for next year?
49ers.
49ers, yeah.
Just like you did last year and the year before that. Where have you been?
Maybe the Raiders.
I said nothing wrong.
Back to the Jaguars. They'll be starting for the Jaguars next year.
That's a good one.
Kyle, what is the state of this Rams offense? I've been saying this about several teams. I feel like there's more narrow attacks than usual this year. And thankfully, the narrow attacks tend to be some of the better teams in football. The Rams are maybe the most predictable one there is right now. Is this a good spot for Matthew Stafford, who totally decked the 49ers in their first meeting this year?
Yeah, I mean, the Rams, are playing like they have a juggernaut on offense, and I kind of just think they do. And I totally agree that, like, maybe it's a chicken or egg situation. It's like when a team finds out they have two players who should command a 30% target share, it's usually because they have two superstars and a quarterback capable of getting the ball to them. But it is a very good green flag to tell you these are offenses we want to target for fantasy purposes. And the Rams have been playing like that. Right now, they are the third fastest team in neutral script, and they have a top 5 pass rate over expected. And Sean McVay has been very wary to cut his offense loose in just terms of, like, we want to be passing the ball a lot more than we want to be running the ball since like back when they traded for Matthew Stafford. They always had like a will they won't. They were
even down the stretch of their Super Bowl season, they started hiding.
Yeah, I mean, that's when we started getting chronic like elbow and back stuff from Stafford, and they started to kind of tamp down the offense a little bit. Obviously, they were still successful, but they're really letting the offense open it up this year. And of course, you know exactly who we're playing. I think Stafford is like working his way into a weekly QB1, albeit more of that 9 to 12 range, but a weekly QB1 ranking. And obviously Puka, who has, I believe McVay has already said he expects Puka to play. Top 3 fantasy receiver. Devontae Adams flirting with like a somehow also wide receiver 1 ranking.
He's the goal line back is why.
Yeah,
he is on every single team. He's the goal line running back.
That's not even a joke. They use him at the goal line as much as any team uses any wide receiver at the goal line. And that is a like 1-2 whammy combined with Blake Corum getting a little more work over the past 3 weeks, 2 games technically. That makes me think Kyren Williams is slowly working his way into the running back 2 ranks and out of the RB1 ranks. Still very playable. I don't think there are many players who are benching him for unless you drafted like 4 straight running backs to start your draft. But of note, if you did wind up with a stacked running back room, if you wound up with a Rico Dowdle, for instance, Dowdle's a guy who will clearly be ranked ahead of Kyren this week.
So I had a friend, I think I already said this on air, who made the comparison that Devontae Adams has kind of become like late career Ronaldo, where Ronaldo's still scoring 30 goals per club season. It's because 28 of them are penalty kicks. You ever think of that? They keep giving Devontae the penalty kicks, and he keeps burying them in the upper right.
It's just like when good players from Europe come to the MLS. You're like, oh, they play every third game and they score 3 goals in that game, then they don't play again.
Adam points out the prop total for Kyron's 64.5 rushing. It does seem very low. Smash the over on that.
I mean, the Niners are really banged up on defense with like no hope to ever get healthy this season.
And McVay loves to humiliate the 49ers too.
Yes, I agree.
And what I'll say too is in the rankings, if Purdy does play, nothing's really changing in the rankings.
No, not really.
The drop off from Mac Jones to Mac Jones has not been very major.
Is
Purdy's
there one?
Better.
Is there one?
There is.
I think you're walking in the dark and you expect to step down, and it's like confusing where you miss the non-step, and there is no step, in fact. And there's like no step down, honestly.
Speaking of confusing, sending the Colts and Falcons to Germany. Yeah, the Falcons and Colts flying to the heart of the continent, Europe, for a lick your wounds special after finally having an off day against the Steelers. Indy is still roughly a touchdown favorite against an Atlanta team, Kyle Dvorchak, that couldn't pull off the Patriots upset last Sunday. Are there real Colts concerns coming out of that Pittsburgh fiasco, or is it just one of those days? I'm going to say in my article, I called Daniel Jones a fabled fumbler. Are we worried at all about what happened last week to Daniel Jones and the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, early in his career, too, his pocket presence was so poor that the fumbling was like a nonstop issue.
He's an in-ring fumbling Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, it wasn't like sacks necessarily or interceptions. It was the fact that all of his sacks were fumbles. Yeah. And that is, I mean, I believe he lost 2 fumbles on Sunday. I will note that, like I talked about, that early in his career, and really for the better part of his career, he was either bad or god awful against pressure, which is to say, like, he was still okay. He still has a good arm when he's not pressured. And this year, that has not been the case. He had thrown 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, no plays PFF graded as turnover-worthy plays against pressure up until week 9, in which he got destroyed under pressure. It was the second most times in total he had been pressured. He logged his highest pressure to sack rate. Like I said, he had a handful, I believe 2 turnover-worthy plays. Doesn't throw any touchdowns, obviously, against the pressure. Maybe this is sort of the one crack in the armor that is something that is a bit endemic to quarterbacks. It's not like their instincts or lack of instincts against pressure are easily changed over time. Like maybe sort of processing speed type stuff can change, accuracy a little bit can change. But I think there's something very inherent about, like, this guy does not sense or handle pressure well. Colts have done a very good job of keeping him out of those situations. And like I said, he actually maybe has changed. But week 9 would have told you, no, this is still OG Daniel Jones. He is just in a system that really accentuates his highlights and has hidden the lowlights up until last week. Truth is probably somewhere in the middle. He's probably still not a great quarterback under pressure. He's probably also not the worst quarterback in the NFL under pressure. I still think this is a really good offense.
He, by the way, is now, I think, tied for 7th in the league in turnovers. So maybe some things never change. But the good news is, as Kyle kind of pointed out, there's been fewer and farther between. And they've earned the right. They have a clunker. It's a 17-game season. Yeah. They had a clunker. Not worried quite yet. Danny, I'm sorry to give you such a vague question, but the Falcons are just like, yeah, all right, the Falcons are here. Do you guys have anything to say? I mean, this is you got literally anything, and we're on the air. Danny, is there anything interesting going on with the Falcons?
There is. I just wanted to congratulate Pat. It only took 10 weeks, but he was right about Daniel Jones. I wanted to shout that out.
Only took the 9 greatest games of a quarterback in NFL history, and Pat was right.
Well, I wasn't true than him nearly as hard as I've been true than some guys this year.
61 dropbacks for Daniel Jones. You think that was the plan last week? 61 dropbacks. Wow. I mean, the formula is clear. Like, you stop Jonathan Taylor, this guy.
You stop Jonathan Taylor, let the fumbling begin.
Yeah, right. This guy can't get away with it if Jonathan Taylor's not like at the forefront of this offense. But I want to say, for fantasy purposes, Daniel Jones played like garbage last week and scored you 20 fantasy points. So there you go. Falcons. Let's see what's going on.
So Denny had so much to say about the Falcons, he immediately started talking about Daniel Jones.
I just had to get my Colts thoughts in. But let's see, the Falcons have been way more pass first of late. They're coming off their pass heaviest game of the season.
And that's what's heated Darnell Mooney up.
He actually retired in week 3. In fact, I have here my notes. The Falcons had a league-leading 77% neutral pass rate in Week 9. That's insane. That's 20 points higher than their normal neutral pass rate. I don't know if that carries over, but wow. I mean, if anything like that carries over, London, Pitts, I guess Mooney in some respects becomes interesting. My guy Algier becomes a non-entity in that situation.
The Patriots are kind of a juggernaut against the run this year, partially because teams
just
choose to throw more against them, but also they choose to throw more against them because they do not give up. They've given up the fewest rushing yards to running backs by any team, and it's not a close race. So I would say maybe that explains what you saw last week.
Yeah, they give up the second lowest rate of rush yards before contact. Only the Browns have been better. Like they're really good. So you're playing Bijan because of the pass game involvement.
He's really good at football. That's why you'd play him. Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely among the top 2 Falcons.
Denny getting blurry as he attempts to praise Bijan. His computer knows.
No, he attempts to praise. He was not. No.
His computer knows when he's telling something he doesn't actually believe in. He thinks Bijan is not good still.
Yeah, the computer always knows. Anyway, you're playing your normal guys.
Playing your normal guys. By the way, this game's in Germany. I recently visited Germany as well. Had dinner at the Epcot Biergarten. So I've been to Germany in the past 2 weeks, just like the Colts and Falcons. Kyle, do we need to reassess Tyler Warren as a top 5 fantasy tight end? Kept his floor very high, not mixing in ceiling weeks. Pretty surprising for a guy who came out like totally gangbusters to begin his rookie season.
Yeah, I don't think I'm removing him from the top 5 yet, but maybe the reason that we will going forward, like I said, not yet, but if we did, I could see it being because Josh Downs is not lighting up the world, but Josh Downs is a really good football player who was doing very close to nothing for the first month of the season. Over Josh Downs' past 4 games, he has logged his first, third, and fourth highest target shares of the year over those past 4 games. He's also just logged his highest and second highest route rates. They're just getting Josh Downs more involved, roughly in the same portions of the field, too, that we see Tyler Warren operate. Tight end is such an awful position, and Tyler Warren is such a good football player that I don't think you knock him out of the top 5. But early in the year, especially when Brock Bowers wasn't, like he was still playing, but was playing hurt, Tyler Warren looked like a contender for the tight end 1 overall. I think even, regardless of Brock Bowers truly having that locked up going forward, I think we can take him out of that conversation, take him out of the him or Trey McBride types of conversations.
We'll say Tyler Warren's hopefully overdue for like a spiked week. And when the floor is this high, ceiling usually follows. But,
yes.
It's been a while, but I had an absolutely giant beer at the Epcot. It was really big, really, really big.
It was the equivalent of 2.5.
Right before I had to go ride Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm a big roller coaster guy.
Really?
Not at all. No, not at all.
Oh,
and hanging on for dear life.
I went to Busch Gardens with my kids in October and got sick after one roller coaster.
Adam said I was drinking out of the Das boot. It was not quite that large, but it actually, I think it was boot shaped. It wasn't the full size boot, but it was boot adjacent. We're break adjacent. Probably a good time to take one. We'll be right back after this. Notre Dame's march toward the college football playoff continues as they battle Navy under the lights in South Bend. Catch the 98th edition of this rivalry Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. College football Saturday, you know what that means. I'll be in Columbia Mo to see our Tigers upset Texas A&M.
Oh,
right?
That's right.
Am I right, guys?
Sure thing, bud. Yep.
Yeah, you're right, man.
What, I thought you were a Mizzou guy this year, by the way. Kyle.
Well, their odds of I just bet on them to make the playoffs, and their odds of making the playoffs are pretty low. So
they're low. They're under 5% right now. But
I've ripped up that ticket, so I ripped up my Mizzou fandom with it.
Once we beat the Aggies. By the way, did you guys know I cashed 2 bets? I placed 2 bets earlier this year. This is not a joke. The over on the St. Louis Cardinals total, money in the bank, and the under on the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers total. That cashed easily. It was 104.5 somehow.
Wow.
I have no idea.
And you were right. They weren't good.
They weren't even good. Yeah, that's right. Talking about not even good. No, 2 really good teams. Patriots and Bucs back from bye as 2.5-point home favorites against the Patriots. The Bucs are still nowhere close, Denny, to full health. And while Chris Godwin is still not practicing, what will be greeting Baker Mayfield and fantasy managers a wideout for a team that is just mixing and matching week to week at this point?
Yeah, I mean, the Godwin thing is concerning at this point. Coming out of bye, still not practicing. It doesn't seem like he's close. So I guess maybe he has a chance to return later this season, but I wouldn't exactly bank on it. I mean, so you have Emeka Egbuka dominating targets here. in what should be a pass-heavy script. Tez Johnson being the deep guy, Kate Otten being the scammy PPR underneath guy, along with Sterling Shepard to an extent. The Patriots are kind of a middling pass defense. They got ripped last week by the Falcons, which was one of the bigger shocks, I think, of the week. I'm sorry. And yeah, right. And the Patriots are allowing the second lowest rushing success rate of the season. That's my spiel for how the Bucs will operate in week 10.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a word you said. We're laughing at the.
I'm gonna transmute.
Then you've got to get a
anger.
little Dvorchak in the private chat. Because of daylight saving, there's one ray of sun that is blasting my face, and you can see it moving up from it started at my chest and it's moved up. It'll hit my eyes at some point. I won't be able to see. Also, it's really hot, so I'm sweaty. And
Well, it looks like it looks like you're in the Cowboy Stadium.
Exactly. I put that in the chat. Catch up.
You missed a similar. I have an away game in Miami right now.
Listen, for the listeners, these two guys, they can chat it up in the side chat, in the actual like text chat, and they expect me to keep up. Man, my millennial brain can't keep up with that stuff. I'm focusing on my notes. I'm focusing on football.
You were giving really good analysis, and all I could do was laugh.
I'm proud of you. I didn't
at
hear
the AT&T Stadium death ray hitting Kyle's face.
I was reading off my notes. I come back to the screen. I see you guys crying, laughing, and I'm like, "What did I say? What did I say? Are they laughing?"
You're doing great, man. Keep it up.
You have no idea what you said. You're not going to believe it when you listen back. How embarrassing it is what you said. Kyle said he's like an away player at the Dolphins stadium. The Dolphins famously melt the opponent. Stadium. Kyle is very, very hot right now, very sun blasted, but he needs to give us the latest on the Patriots backfield. Reminder: Stevenson still not practicing with his toe injury.
Yeah, it doesn't look like if you missed last week and you missed 2 practices, my assumption is, and for fantasy purposes, we should say you're not playing. Last week, I would say Trevion Henderson looked good. He got 14 carries, I believe, caught 4 passes as well. That's awesome. Like, I love when a player, I honestly didn't draft him that much because people saw him return a kickoff and were like, let's take a kickoff returner in the second round. But I liked him. I still wanted him to be good. I love when that player looks good. I do not like when they give up 11 carries to a UDFA who didn't make the roster, and they give the short down and distance work to that UDFA, Terrell Jennings, as well. I mean, the good news is it's a decent scoring environment. The fact that they're like slight underdogs might actually work in favor because you want the PPR production from him. But there was obviously a path for when Ramondre Stevenson goes down for him to be a workhorse, for him to maybe see goal line work as the team's second round pick. And that is just not happening. So I think he's maybe in the RB2 conversation. He probably is, but he's not even close to like a top 15 conversation. Is he the RB23 or the RB27? I kind of am pessimistic and rank him a little lower because not only did you give up the goal line work, but just straight up gave up 11 carries. So I don't know, frustrating run out for him. Still very playable this week without Ramondre, but he just is not ever going to hit that ceiling without the goal line work.
I have him in the 20 to 24. He had never played more. His previous season high snap percentage was 50 on the dot. He got to 75 on the dot last week. When you play that many snaps, even if you're not the primary option, a lot of those higher leverage spots, usually you kind of blunder into RB2 numbers, but it is going to be admittedly difficult with Terrell Jennings handling so many of those key snaps. And yeah, Kyle is just right in your eyes now. Denny, Stephon Diggs, he's gone cold. Only revenge games, by the way. More than 3 catches against the Titans, Vrabel's revenge game. More than 3 against the Bills, his revenge game. Only 3 in his other past 3 most recent games. Kayshon Boutte battling a hamstring injury. He's out. Pop Douglas reemerged last weekend for some reason. Who's actually in fantasy lineups here from this New England Patriots passing attack, and why does it not include Hunter Henry?
Wanted to quickly mention that I wrote up this game for the for my matchup column, the funnel report, which will be out on Friday. So for more details, check that out. But yeah, Tampa opponents have passed the ball at a 61% neutral rate this year. That's jumped to 65% over their past 3 games. It's the second highest in the league. 6 of the 8 teams to face the Bucs this season have been well above their expected pass rate. And so what you can say about that is that I think the Patriots will be pretty pass heavy here. The Bucs, here's something I have for Stephon Diggs, because if you want some cope, I have some Diggs cope for you. So
never once drafted him, but I still always appreciate cope.
Yeah, I mean, why would you? But So he's leading the league. He's leading the team, not the league. He's leading the team in yards after the catch. And the Bucs allow the 5th highest rate of passing yards that come after the catch. So there you go. There's your Stefan Diggs coat. I also kind of think Hunter Henry's kind of a sicko play, but that's just me.
He probably is due. The due factor, of course, being very real.
He's running routes.
He's running routes. He's also been running very cold. He probably is due. I had a perfect segue earlier. I don't remember what were you going to say, Denny?
Pop Douglas. It's hard to say what his route participation will be with Kayshon Boutte out. Kyle Williams actually slotted in as like the next guy up last week, but he was not targeted. He was only targeted once, I think. Douglas targeted on 33% of his routes last week. Caught a long touchdown. So I mean, he's not going to see like 80% of the routes, but I don't know if he has to do that here. I like this environment. It's a good game environment. It could be back and forth. I like Drake May's efficiency, and that translates to the pass catchers. Could translate to Douglas if you're desperate at receiver.
Pat, segue is something along the lines of, and we joined Kyle on the sidelines in Miami.
No, it was worse than that. Or didn't use the phrase "hard to say." I was gonna say it's hard to say how much of my wages are going to be garnished at the end of the year, depending on Bucky Irving and when he actually gets back. Because I mean, close to taking the whole paycheck. That's my way of saying Bucky's not playing this week.
Yeah,
it's never been more over.
I told you before the show, Pat, that I saw a social media post of Bucky Irving's like the day after his injury.
Should have flagged this.
It was very like religious and
he basically like wrote a prayer.
What will my life be like now? That sort of thing. And if I had seen that, here's what I would have done. I would have taken Rashad White in a trade with Mike Clay in the Apex League because this guy's not coming back. It's over.
Mike Clay, the ultimate industry trade spammer, by the way. He wears you down. He puts you out until you hit accept.
Bucky Irving posted major setback for a major comeback. And like, wait, no, that's not how that works. It's not.
It's been a major setback for my wallet. Week 9 smashed any illusions. This might be a different Dolphins team down the stretch, Kyle. They fired their general manager, and they're now hosting the Bills as 2-score home underdogs. I'm always asking you about the Bills' lack of explosiveness. Did anything change in last week where it wasn't necessarily explosiveness and just totally insane efficiency? But was that the case? Was that just hyper efficiency, or did maybe something shake loose in this Bills offense last week? And as for this week, are they just going to try to bulldoze the Dolphins on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They've been they were super efficient last week because they've been super efficient all year, and they have been explosive all year. I think the reason they don't feel explosive is because outside of James Cook, you have never once been able to correctly pick who the explosive player is. Every week you think like, oh, this is a good Keon Coleman match.
Yet again, Tyrell Shavers, apparently.
I know. It's always a random cast of guys, none of whom you're actually putting in your fantasy lineup. I will say, things are shaking loose in terms of, I think Khalil Shakir is just back. He missed a bunch of August with a high ankle sprain and opened the first 3 weeks of the year with like a 14% target share, really poor fantasy showings as well. Over his past 5 games, he's up to a monstrous 27% target share. His route rate, not elite, but strong enough that if he's earning 27% of the targets on Josh Allen's offense, I think if you just told me a guy earns 27% of Josh Allen's targets, I'm like, that's a wide receiver too. Hasn't quite lived up to like what I would say is wide receiver 2 usage yet, but I do think, I said it, 27% targets. I think, are confidently playing him. Dalton Kincaid is doing like Brock Bowers levels of efficiency with like 50% of Brock Bowers' role. That is still worth almost top 5 fantasy numbers. Outside of that, it is a keep it locked to Rotoworld situation in the backfield with James Cook not practicing on Wednesday. Their injury report came out as we were getting on the show. I can give you an update. I
think he practiced Thursday. I could be spreading fake news. I believe. Yeah, limited in practice on Thursday per Adam.
Can I touch on the Dalton Kincaid situation, because he catches 6 of 6 targets, 100 some yards last week.
Sustainable.
I mentioned him in the regression files if folks want to check that out. And as usual, I posted the regression files to Reddit. I was greeted with some folks who were skeptical that Dalton Kincaid could possibly regress from averaging 6.5 yards per route last week. 6.5 yards per route last week. So if you are of the mind that he's going to see a target on 50% of his routes, and he's going to average 6 yards per route, then you play him, and he's a top 5 play. If not, then he's a thin play, and he will continue to be a thin play, even though he looked good. Oh, and there was an argument. Well, he's the number 1 red zone target. I looked into it. Two red zone targets this year.
Oh my God, that's a lower number than I thought.
And also, don't put it on quote the Reddit that Denny is mad.
I'm not mad.
He's not.
Denny, this is your guy. This is what you signed up for. You really liked. I mean, you were correct in pointing out that like all the per route stuff for Dalton Kincaid last year, like it was percolating. It was a young player who was doing good stuff on a per route basis. And ultimately, the routes have not changed, but on a per route basis, he's getting even better. Like he's played really well this year. I think the fact that he doesn't run 100% of the routes tells you like what his lot in life is as a tight end. But if you're going to be the league leader in yards per route run and you play with Josh Allen and you get like 60% of the routes, he's a tight end 1. I do agree that it makes the floor quite atrocious. Like if they come out and throw a long touchdown to Khalil Shakir and a long touchdown to Tyrell Shavers, then they start to shut it down, which they've kind of done this year. When they get a lead, they're not the most fun team with a lead. At that point, you find yourself in a 2 catch for 27-yard game from Dalton Kincaid. But like every tight end except for the top 3 has that floor. So I do agree with you. Like last week, you got a little treat. You got a little bit more than you deserve in that sense. But I don't think you're benching him.
Look, Kincaid has yet to draw more than 6 targets this year. The valley is coming. It's been all peaks so far. And by the way, Denny, their post on Reddit, they got you rattled. They said we got Denny wearing a sweatshirt today. He's rattled. He's totally right. He's changing up his wardrobe, trying out new things, trying to be a new Denny.
I am. I'm not rattled, and I'm not mad. I'm actually happy that they pointed out that my article was useless.
I know. You gotta love the internet. You absolutely have to love the internet. You have to love Jalen Waddle. We are starting Jalen Waddle. He's been printing money since Tyreek Hill's season-ending injury, Denny. Also starting Devin Achane, of course. What about anyone else in this Dolphins, quote, offense?
Yeah. I mean, assuming normal game script, which I think is quite a big assumption considering the Dolphins are...
The Dolphins always make the Bills like their Super Bowl. That tends to be more in Buffalo, I feel like, than in Miami, though.
So when these teams played in week 3, I think this is somewhat instructive. The Dolphins were 7% below their expected pass rate. It was the run heaviest game of the year for them. It didn't mean much for Devon Achane. He had 62 yards on 12 rushes. Ollie Gordon had 39 yards and a touchdown on 9 rushing attempts. The Miami backfield altogether averaged 5.2 yards per carry, 3.5 yards per carry before contact. So the good environment for rushing. Mike McDaniel has said, that game is a model for how I want the backfield to look. So what I'm saying is, if Ollie Gordon plays through whatever injury, you think ankle injury maybe he's dealing with right now, he could see more opportunity than you think. But again, this assumes that the Dolphins can hang with the Bills, which I think is maybe a bad assumption.
Is there a fired your GM bump ever that we're working with here? They've been wanting to get Ollie more and more involved, and they sort of succeeded once. So I guess, Denny, you could hang your hat on that, like something they really want to happen.
They do. They really want that to happen. And you know, I mean, Achane will be fine because he's going to catch 5 to 7 balls here. But yeah, Gordon could see 10 touches.
Kyle pointing out we can use his face as a sundial. And boy, it is setting quickly. I do not like the low evening sun in the fall and the winter.
What is going on? By the time we end the show, it's going to be pitch black.
The low evening sun in the west. Coming off one of the craziest games of the decade, the Chicago Bears are somewhat modest 4.5-point home favorites against the New York Giants, Denny Carter. That's probably because the Bears offense has really only come alive in the softest of matchups. That's, of course, good to come alive in good matchups, but they have not been coming alive in other matchups. So what kind of date is this for Chicago and company?
Yeah. Giants defense has pretty much collapsed over the past month. Only the Bengals over that span are allowing a higher EPA per play than the Giants. Giants have been bottom 10 in pass EPA, bottom 3 in run EPA. So, I mean, like, you can do pretty much whatever you want against New York. Only 6% of the offense. This is kind of instructive because I feel like this is a Caleb stat here. Only 6% of the offensive possessions against the Giants this year have ended with a turnover. Only the Jets have a lower rate. So I feel like even Caleb can't mess up too much here. You started him last week. Hopefully, I feel like you just start him again this week.
Using my quote OP spot last week. Offensive player is what they call it on ESPN. My OP spot.
That's a new one. That was a new one for me this year. Learning that
nomenclature. I feel like we could workshop that one. Nothing to workshop on Rico Dowdle, Kyle. He's the best player in football. But we're not talking about Rico Dowdle. We're talking about the next Rico Dowdle. Kyle Monangai. Do we have a Rico Dowdle warning being issued for Kyle Monangai? DeAndre Swift does seem like he's in return this week after missing last Sunday with a groin injury.
Yeah, I mean, I put in my notes, I think we have a Rico Dowdle situation in which teams are really stubborn in giving, I don't want to say clearly the better player, because albeit Kyle Monangai's 118 yards after contact last week were more than DeAndre Swift has ever put together in a single game in his NFL career, there is an asterisk. He played the Bengals. Like, you cannot discount enough, or you at least have to consider how much you should be discounting the fact that that's the easiest matchup in the NFL right now, maybe second easiest. So yeah, there's a bit of an asterisk there, but it was a better game than we've ever seen from DeAndre Swift. And despite that, I'm not 100% confident he just comes out and gets even 60% of the carries, because just like we saw in Carolina, these teams are so set in their ways that even when something is so glaringly shoved in their face, they are still hesitant to make the change. The change in Carolina obviously being give Rico Dowdle every touch. He's awesome. I do think Kyle Monangai has earned the majority of the carries. If I were an NFL coach, I'd give him more carries than DeAndre Swift.
I'll say this. Here's the difference too. They don't like DeAndre Swift, and they're kind of like hoping and praying for this outcome. I feel like, and we're like I feel like they were kind of just waiting for the moment to feed, and like let it happen. Like, all right, yes, do it. Sorry, like don't even think about it, and they might make the switch. But he'd been trending towards 50% of the snaps even before last week. I
also think he's still playable, even if you get 40% or 50% of the snaps, 40% of the carries. Like Denny was saying, this Giants defense is going to provide no resistance, and as all of us have kind of pointed out, the Bears are very much interested in, I'm going to say, protecting their quarterback by running the football a lot and running it well. They've run relatively well this year. To me, even if you don't get all of the carries, which I think Monangai deserves a lot of carries, even if you don't get that, he's still an RB3. And we could look back and be like, oh, we should have ranked him as the RB 11 or 12 if he just gets a lot of work.
The environment of this game, I think, could lead to Monangai and DeAndre Swift splitting like 25 to 28 carries. And maybe Monangai gets 12 of those. I mean, that's a pretty good workload against a really poor Giants rush defense.
It's very magnanimous of Kyle, by the way, to say protecting Caleb Williams as opposed to hiding Caleb Williams. Denny, speaking of backfield splits, we were a little skeptical about Tyrone Tracy last week. It turns out the Giants coaching staff remained highly skeptical as well. Devin Singletary, taking the lead is a bit strong. He was definitely a co-lead. What did you see out of Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary last Sunday?
Yeah, this was the Roto-Pat special because Pat always reminds us that in-game situations when a running back goes down are often quite different than when the team has a week to prepare. And that's what we got here with Devin Singletary, who has been a favorite of Brian Daboll for, at least 2 decades. I mean, it's an unbelievable amount of time. He led the way with 8 carries, which, not much, but only 5 for Tyrone Tracy. Singletary did quite well with those opportunities, 5.4 yards per carry, 70% success rate. Tracy struggled, meanwhile, on his, only 5 rushes. And Tracy had an edge in the route running and saw 4 targets to only 2 for Singletary. So it looks like Tracy is, I guess, the de facto pass catching guy to this backfield, and Singletary is the between the tackles guy. When you split that up, it makes both of them very thin plays, especially here, and especially with a quarterback in Jackson Dart who doesn't check down. And he's not going to start, I don't think, now.
By the way, I forgot to ask you guys, I would be remiss not to ask you any Roma Dunze thoughts. Maybe the most painful 0 of the entire fantasy season last weekend. Any copium from either of you?
So I actually wrote about him in 10 takeaways, and the team for the first month of the season was treating him like you treat almost like a superstar wide receiver, where like we're giving him intermediate work, we're giving him deep work, like we're juicing the air yards numbers, but we're also juicing the PPR scam stuff with a whole bunch of screens. He saw 29% of the team's screens over the first 4 games of the year. That is down to 18%. They're not designing these free PPR looks for him anymore. So he is solely reliant on intermediate and deep stuff from Caleb. Caleb hasn't been the most accurate quarterback this year. Those are not easy targets to convert, even for good quarterbacks. They're just more high variance targets in general. So he has very much fallen away from the true number one receiver usage to probably still projects for the most fantasy points on this team, but the gap has closed tremendously.
And it's over for Roma Dunze. And it's over for this game. Already nuking, quote, on the reg. The Seahawks now have a viable downfield threat in Rashid Shaheed, Kyle. How does Shaheed's Seattle arrival change things for a passing attack that has been hyper efficient but relatively low volume?
Yeah, I hope this convinces them to throw deep more, because right now, among quarterbacks with at least 10 attempts, Sam Darnold easily leads the league in both yards per attempt and completion rate. I think he's also the league leader in PFF passing grade on at least 10 deep attempts this year, but he's only thrown deep at the 13th highest rate, which isn't to say he's afraid of throwing deep or they're not doing it at a reasonable amount. But this is a situation where you should push that button until you find out when it becomes inefficient. You should find out when you get diminishing returns, as opposed to just doing it a few times a week and it's great every single time. Of note, the only receiver on deep targets that hasn't been particularly good this year is Torrey Horton. He has 2 touchdowns. He's only caught 2 of 6. He hasn't caught a ton of his contested deep looks either. Rashid Shaheed, I think, Torrey Horton's been fun, but he's doing a little bit of the Jahan Dotson where he scores a bunch of touchdowns as a rookie, but he really isn't that efficient in a number of key metrics. I think it makes sense for them to, over the intermediate run, over the back half of the season, say Torrey Horton's a fun splash play player. We don't know if he's our number 3 receiver. This week, it might not matter. Cooper Kupp didn't practice Wednesday. I don't think he's going to play this week. Keep it locked to Rotoworld as if it matters. Don't play Cooper Kupp if he's active. I'll tell you that much. But I do think taking spending draft capital on Rashid Shaheed in a contract year is very much evidence that they're trying to push their chips in on this passing attack over the final 2 months of the season.
Oh man, they should, because my guy Sam is cooking.
He's cooking. As I told Denny on Tuesday, but you can listen to Tuesday's episode for a longer analysis than this. It's just Shaheed to the Seahawks is an almost perfect fit, completely perfect fit. I didn't even mention my explanation of this game, who the Seahawks are playing. That would be the Arizona Cardinals. And so, Denny, what is the latest update on just how much better the Cardinals are with what we can now call new starting quarterback, Jacoby Brissett? Kyler in absolute shambles.
Oh my gosh. And Kyler was put on IR. And
yeah, they're rigging an injury.
Frankly, it is very much Kyler, you don't want to be here. We don't want you to be here. Let's just separate for the next 2 months.
Denny, I don't know if you were going to reference this or saw this. There's cut ups. This is not a joke of Kyler's week 9 practice reps where he looks highly healthy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks highly healthy.
Man, benchings aren't what they used to be.
No, I know. Brian Flores used to be Tua sucks. So we're gonna bench him. And
I feel like the Zoomers can't take it. They can't take a real benching. DJ McCarthy can't take a real benching, right? So
Denny
coddling the youth. The new coaches are coddling the youth. Folks,
we just witnessed Denny become an old man in real time, but it's fine because I agree with it.
Right. So I'm right.
Denny said nothing wrong.
You're talking about roughly 100 air yards more per game for the total team offense with Jacoby Brissett under center. I know that sounds dumb to a lot of fantasy folks. I don't care about air yards. I want real yards. Well, you got to have the air yards first, brothers and sisters. And you didn't have that. You didn't have that at all with Kyler Murray. You don't have that. We're going to talk about the Steelers in a minute. You don't have any air yards. There are no air yards in the Pittsburgh offense. So
surely some of those horizontal slants from Aaron Rodgers produce 1 to 2 air yards.
You're right. My bad. But yeah, so you have a more aggressive thrower in Brissett. You have a guy who will target MHJ at a higher rate per route. You have a guy who will throw aggressively in the red zone. The Cardinals are actually much more pass heavy in the red zone than they were with Kyler. It's all very good. This is not a good matchup. Let me be clear. Not a good matchup. Let me also be clear in saying that I think we can get away with it. I think Brissett profiles as a decent 14-team starter. Definitely a super flex option. And they'll be playing from behind, and the Cardinals have a 67% pass rate when trailing this year. So we could get some volume.
The only real risk with Jacoby Brissett is that boy, is he willing to let the Carson Wentz waves take him. And our guy seems to really feel most alive when he's getting splintered in two.
Listen, if Jacoby's listening, I got to remind every week, I got to remind you of this. This is not your last job. This is not one last job. We need you around for the long haul.
Boy, he likes to face his fears in the pocket. He really, really likes to get hit. Cardinals cannot face their fears in their backfield. They're just like doing something new every single week, Kyle. I would say their approach is verging on nihilistic. In about 1 week you're cut, the next week you're the lead back. 1 week you're getting benched because, I don't know, you dropped a 70-yard touchdown for no reason. And then you're starting. What's the latest here? Amari DiMercato led the backfield last week, only played 40% of the snaps, though. What do we do with this?
Yeah, so there's been, I think, Denny, you've been on this as well, that on the Amari DiMercato drop touchdown, like, he might have crossed the goal line. It's very questionable.
So this is still being litigated? That's interesting.
I think the Cardinals might be litigating it in real time because they went back, watched the film, and they're like, I think he scored. And then last week, they go out and give him the bulk of the carries. They did not play, I don't believe, Michael Carter on a single offensive snap. And what they did was they moved Bam Knight to the formerly Amari DiMercato, formerly Michael Carter role of playing on passing downs, but being the clear backup between the tackles. Then they moved Amari DiMercato from his role as not playing much football to being the team's lead running back, seeing over half of the carries. Will they do this again this coming week? I have no clue. Denny, I think, said on Tuesday, like, if you have a source inside the Cardinals building, feel free to run with that and play whoever they tell you to play. Otherwise, like, I don't really want to play any running back who is not seeing all the work. None of these running backs will see all the work as a 6.5-point road dog against a really good Seattle defense. If you are forced to, though, last week's data says Amari DiMercato is the best bet for overall touches. That's all I can give you.
But yeah, I will say every time I see the replay of that, I watched it right in my article this week. This is, I'm not making this up. Yeah, it looks like maybe crossed the goal line. I thought it's so split second.
It is. But, it was not clear. It wasn't a Deshaun Jackson drop. No. Like that. Like he used to drop it at the 4-yard line.
He would. It should have still counted. He understood. Who cares? I scored the touchdown. Who cares? Yeah. Who cares about the Seahawks backfield? I mean, status quo here. Anything changing between
teams, buddy? They care a lot.
Anything changing between KW3 and Zach Charbonnet?
Not really, honestly. It's like rotating drives sometimes, and no matter how long or short the drive is, Ken Walker is being stuffed at a really high rate, and that's because he's always looking for like the big run, the splash play. Charbonnet is just abysmal, like by every metric. Like, I looked because I know Seahawks fans online have been like, no, you don't understand. Like Charbonnet is actually pretty good. And I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all. Even the eye test, which I don't even like to talk about. But
the eye test. Even Zach, don't mention that.
No, I feel like if you're a Charbonnet truth or a Seahawks fan, you don't want people to try the eye test on this.
No,
like it's much worse than
that. I feel like you don't on Walker either. Like Walker, you do on half the plays, and the other half. Well, yeah, sure. If you watch the play where you ran backwards 13 yards,
you want to watch the highlight reel for Kenneth Walker. That's the eye test you want to watch. But the highlight reel is like 6 of 16 carries.
Don't look when he hydroplaned backwards 17 yards.
Isn't it funny though? You have a very balanced, if not a little bit run heavy Seattle offense that has 2 terrible running backs. How does that work?
It makes you wonder what it might look like if they just got one real running back.
To be fair to them, they run the football a lot. They also play with a lot of tight ends on the field, and they convince teams to play with defensive sets that should not be guarding Jackson Smith-Njigba, and that should not be guarding deep shots from Sam Darnold, who has a really lively arm. And it is very much like it harkens back to the Ryan Tannehill is the most efficient quarterback in football days of 2018 or 2019, where I still think they should push the passing more. Find out when it becomes less efficient. Don't just say, we know it becomes less efficient somewhere. You should try and push your edges there. But I also think what they're doing is designed, like all of this stuff is done on purpose, to some degree.
Yeah, sure.
Any final words there, Denny? Are we moving on?
No. I mean, I guess I would start Walker over Charbonnet, but neither of them. I mean, neither of them are RB2s, right?
No, I capitulated and put Walker ahead of Charbonnet this week. Running back is extraordinarily bad.
Yeah, it is.
Like, we're talking extraordinarily. I think Walker kind of sneaks into the top 24. They're both in the top 30. You might wonder how this is possible until you look, and you will very much
you
understand.
do have to look.
You will very much understand how it is possible. So if you don't believe me, just check it out at rotoworld.com, my week 10 rankings. Smarting from their latest, most embarrassing loss of the season, Denny Carter. The Green Bay Packers are for some reason favored against the Eagles. Can't say I understand this one. The game is in Green Bay. That strikes me as odd. What is going wrong with this Packers offense, and how will things now look without Tucker Kraft, who has torn his ACL?
I'm going to get to Kraft in a second. I just want to say that the Packers, after looking into it strongly, are not as run heavy as I thought, but that comes with an asterisk, right? So they're middle of the road in neutral pass rate. They're middle of the road in pass rate over expected, okay? They have a 57% pass rate when trailing, which is the third lowest in the league. And that tells me that Matt LaFleur refuses to get off this shtick when they fall behind.
That's very Shanahan tree. Like, you go down by 3 points, like, oh, we lost again, even though it's the second quarter.
Man, yeah, it is. It really is. It's like, well, now we can't win, I guess. Now,
you remember my old Shanahan line? I used to say, what was it? I guess we're never winning again.
Yeah, it's very much like that.
Yeah, LaFleur like basically gives up.
Shanahan, it's overtime in the Super Bowl. What are you saying? We have lost another football game.
But yeah, so the Kraft thing is big. I know probably Kyle has a bone to pick with what I said about Kraft on Tuesday, but before you do that, so Kraft had 115 yards after the catch this season. No other Packer has more than 41 yards after the catch. So he was their whole thing. He was their whole catch and run thing. He had accounted for almost 24% of the team's receiving yards while running a route on only 68% of the team's dropbacks. Like, so you taking this crazy efficient guy and you're just yanking him and you're putting in a guy who's worse, probably. And whose name I can't come up with. This is the name.
Luke Musgrave.
Luke Musgrave. No one can ever remember his name. I think all three of us have taken turns forgetting it this week. Somehow.
Not me, man. I fought the Luke Musgrave wars to the teeth when he was a rookie.
I honestly, I feel like this is, I know you guys agree, but like a massive loss for like the way the Packers want to operate. I guess it's a boon for Romeo Doubs. I guess probably for Josh Jacobs, perhaps, as a short area pass catcher. I don't know.
Dobbs is in the top 24 for maybe only like the second or third time all season. Hard to see how it does not help Romeo Doubs. Christian Watson, totally different player than Tucker Kraft, but maybe now like the designated big play specialist. Maybe they'll change the offense a little bit, actually.
Yeah,
so you're not going to get the catch and run, so maybe now you'll actually get some downfield shots.
Right, so they're missing Jaden Reed, who's another catch and run guy. Right, and they're missing Kraft, so they're going to have to figure out something else.
Kyle, what is the state of the Eagles and their narrow skill core? AJ Brown practiced Thursday. Saquon Barkley practiced Thursday. Should hopefully both be out there Monday evening in Green Bay.
Yeah, the reports going into their bye was that both of them were expected to return. I mean, Barkley didn't technically miss any games. AJ Brown's expected to return. Barkley not expected to miss any time, using the bye to recover. That appears to be all true. I think it's all hands on deck for this team, and it should be a fun game, albeit maybe not the most high scoring. I do fear that they get trapped into the game that the Packers want to play, even if they don't win these games, is like, let's both see who gets to 20 first. And then it turns out neither of them. And it's who gets to 16 first, which was I believe the Panthers' final score in that game. The Packers have faced a negative 2% pass rate over expected this year. They're kind of middle of the pack in terms of their EPA versus the run and pass. They're slightly worse against the run in terms of where they rank. Should always just be passing more, but that has caused teams to generally run the ball against them. I also think the way the Packers play on offense has caused teams to run the ball against them, as the Panthers would tell you last week. To me, I think this would be a bad spot for specifically the Eagles to do it, because the Packers limit yards before contact at a top 10 rate. And the Eagles broke out their rushing game against the Giants, well, it was now 2 weeks ago, 1 game ago, because the Giants were giving up tons of yards before contact. And that's what someone like Saquon Barkley thrives on, is get him into open space, and you don't want defenders touching him. Give him the sprint runway, and he will house call it. But if you hit him in the backfield, he's been a poor running back when you hit him in the backfield this year. Packers do that pretty well. So To me, that screams like these are two good offenses. Why is there a 45.5 point total? It's because I think they both want to play to a 45.5 point total. Frankly, they want to play to the under.
I was surprised to see how low the total was, but you laid out why it's low perfectly. Time to take a short break. We will be right back after this. Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers pack their bags and head west for a showdown with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Coverage of the critical AFC battle begins on Football Night in America at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock this Sunday night. Once again, missing their linchpin left tackle Joe Alt. Unfortunately, this time for the season, the aforementioned Chargers return home to the aforementioned LA to host the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Chargers are field goal favorites, Kyle. How do we make sense of this four-wide Bolts passing attack? Everyone except for arguably Keenan Allen has major upside, but the floor can fall out for any one of them with so much target competition. It has not done so thus far for Ron Negatz in the second, I must say.
Okay, so you laid out kind of exactly how I feel about this, whereas I actually think the ceilings are relatively high for all the non-Keenan Allen players, and it's specifically because they just don't play Keenan Allen that much anymore. He's had route rates over the past 2 weeks of like 50 and 54%. Over the past month, which is basically as soon as they ramped up Oronde Gadsden to a full-time role, he has ran 2 routes outside of 11 personnel or outside of there being at least 3 receivers on the field. So like some 14 or some 4 receiver sets in there. They do not play him when they bring an extra running back / fullback or an extra tight end or 2 extra tight ends onto the field. And that has caused him to be a very minor piece of the offense in recent weeks. I don't know if there's any real reason for them to change that. He's an like aging veteran receiver who was brought in to be the steady hand of the offense, but was probably not brought in, especially when you have a Quentin Johnson third-year breakout, Ladd McConkey finally looking back to form, and an elite tight end producer as a rookie. You don't really need to play Keenan on every single snap, and they are seemingly recognizing that. So I think that really hurts both his floor and his ceiling. Maybe the upside is that when he's on the field, he's probably earlier in the read progression, but the ceiling, I think, is kind of gone with him. For the rest of them, decent floor because they run all the routes, decent ceiling because they're all talented players who run routes. For Justin Herbert, they run all the routes. I will say, though, that there is still bust potential for any one of them because, like you said, lots of good players, too many mouths to feed for every player to get there.
And now Joe Alt, one of the best tackles in all football, out for the season. Justin Herbert could be running for his life more than expected. He was running for his life a lot against the Tennessee Titans, who were missing Jeffrey Simmons, don't exactly have an elite front seven. Denny Carter, I keep asking you these open-ended questions they show, but it's because I know you can answer them. What is the state of the Pittsburgh Steelers? It's a narrow offense. It's not a fun offense. Who do we actually play from the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I wanted to mention I have a Joe Alt stat. Chargers are top 5 in offensive EPA when he plays. They're bottom 10 when he doesn't.
Hashtag Herbert exposed.
So he's the most important player in the NFL, apparently. So like I mentioned earlier, I mean, there's no air yards going here. The air yards machine is not going burr. In fact, it's broken. Steelers are averaging 5.7 air yards per attempt. No one else is under 6.5 air yards per attempt. So there's a big gap there. DK Metcalf only being targeted on 20% of his routes. Combine the first thing I said with that thing, and it's going to be hard to get there for wide receiver 2 purposes without a touchdown, I should say. And
he never does that. He hasn't scored a bunch of those.
And so only 40% of the team's targets are going to wide receiver. It's the lowest rate in the league. Only 3 teams.
That's always the last thing you see before your career ends is when you stop targeting wide receivers. Like, come on.
It could be an Arthur Smith thing, but so you would think, okay, well, who's getting the ball, right? So only 3 teams target the running back position more, but Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren are splitting that up depending on the week, right? And then no one targets the tight end position more, but again, it's split up. Not only split up, but split up 3 ways. I don't know who to tell you to play here beyond DK Metcalf's kind of Metcalf. You're playing Warren. I guess you can close your eyes and pick a tight end to play if you think this game will has some shootout potential or that the Steelers will be playing from behind. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. Like desperation flyer mode. If it's any Steeler other than Jalen Warren or DK Metcalf, and even Metcalf, who we didn't think was a great stylistic fit. That appeared wrong the first 6 weeks of the season. Looking a little more right the past 4 or 5. Kyle, what's going on with the Chargers backfield following another clunker from Kamani Vidal? It was Jarrett Patterson closing out the game against the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, a little bit of a concern here because we saw just 48% of the carries go to Kamani Vidal. But like you said, maybe that's just Jared Patterson closeout work. Although I don't love that someone else is getting in there for closeout work, but as long as they play in competitive games, we still saw 72% of the snaps, 62% of the routes go to Kamani Vidal. Tells me that he maybe is still the team's lead back. As long as that holds, I'm very comfortable playing, albeit I know they're down Joe Alt as well. Very comfortable playing who's probably the lead back, if not the workhorse back for the Chargers. But that introduces more risk than I thought we had going forward.
Yeah, that's you thought you had like one of those like, man, I didn't even think Kamani Vidal would be good, and he's not.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens to the Houston Texans, who are missing C.J. Stroud. The Texans have the embarrassing distinction of being home underdogs to Trevor Lawrence. Yikes. Kyle Dvorchak, the big news here is Jacoby Myers' insertion into the Jags skill core. Will he hit the ground running? Is he for sure ahead of Parker Washington with Brian Thomas Jr. sidelined with what is a high ankle sprain?
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr., I don't think he practiced on Thursday either. Probably not playing this week. And that really does free up a ton of work for Jacoby Myers, even if it is his first game on a short week with the Jags. I don't know if you project him over Parker Washington. I don't know that you need to. Almost no team in the NFL throws to specifically their wide receivers more than the Jags. So to me, even if he isn't a full route rate,
Hashtag free Brenton Strange.
The whole offense collapsed without that guy.
It did.
And Hunter Long did not practice. I didn't see his practice status on Thursday, but he didn't practice Wednesday. They're so thin at the skill position room after losing Travis Hunter, after probably losing Brian Thomas, losing their starting tight end, maybe their backup tight end, that I don't think the team can really afford to be like, Jacoby has to learn the scheme for a week or two before we get him up to a full route rate. I think there is some risk that happens, but even if he's only running 60 or 70% of the routes, Jags love targeting their wide receivers. He's still playable this week. If you did make me pick, I'd go Parker Washington, but I think it's probably just a 1 week thing.
Great way to lay it out. I have Parker Washington with a narrow rankings advantage. Probably for Parker the only week that will continue. Unless Jacoby is a bit on that Amari Cooper diet where he just wasn't as good as expected the first half of the year. We thought a change of scenery would like spring him, and it just doesn't. It probably will, though. But Parker Washington. I had a Jacoby Myers this week. Denny, do we care about the Texans at all without C.J. Stroud? This horrid game environment. 37.5 game total.
No, I mean, Dalton Schultz led the team in targets when Davis Mills was at quarterback last week. He saw a target on 29% of his routes. That's all I got for them. I wanted to mention with the Jaguars, they went, quote, giga run heavy in week 9, 45% neutral pass rate, lowest pass rate of expected of the season for them. And they played more 2 tight end sets than they have all season. So I think we're going to see a lot of running here, both to avoid the elite Houston secondary and because they don't have any receivers or pass catchers. Diami Brown, by the way, might not play either. I don't know who's going to play. So I think ETN could see a lot of opportunity here, if nothing else.
Sounds like Denny's not playing Nico Collins. He said Dalton Schultz was the only Texan he cared about. Very curious.
No. That's not what I meant. I mean, you're playing Nico Collins.
You're playing Nico Collins. Kyle, Denny just talking about the Jaguars backfield. Anything to add or anything to say about the Texans backfield? Nick Chubb not practicing might be finally Woody Marks season.
Yeah, I mean, this offense, at least starting on the Houston side, is going to be bad / horrific probably with Davis Mills under center. But to your point, I think there's a real chance we get the full Woody Marks experience, at least in terms of carries and potentially targets too, specifically coming out of college. That was kind of his calling card. It was just an extreme amount of receiving volume playing in a few different like Mike Leach offenses. But still, that was his calling card. It's something he's a ton of reps with. So even if they get negative game script, maybe some pass catching work, I think you do just have to start him if Nick Chubb doesn't play. And you almost can't start him if Nick Chubb does play because he still has a good chance to lead the team in carries. Other backfield, I want Bashal Tutin to be a thing. Even as Travis Etienne's efficiency has plummeted over the last month compared to the first month of the season, Tutin has not been, he hasn't been particularly good in terms of his yards after contact are still well below Travis Etienne this year. He does not have a carry of 15 plus yards. His PFF rushing grade is lower than Travis Etienne. He is not forcing the issue, even as Travis Etienne's efficiency drops. And we saw last week that there was like a recommitment to Travis Etienne getting 22 carries to Bashal Tutin's 9. Maybe you could say that there is enough backfield work to go around. As Denny pointed out, they could be super run heavy in this game as favorites against a good Texans passing defense, that you're kind of banking on 8 to 12 touches for Bashal Tutin. 8 to 12 touches, some people need to drop that in their RB2 slot, but I think that's all you could count on as like the ceiling potentially.
Very concerning that it wasn't a demonstrated bigger role for Bashal Tutin coming out of that bye week. You wanted it to happen last week. Maybe, as Denny said, it'll happen this week when the passing game's so banged up. And the Texans play really great pass defense. The Jets cleaned house at the trade deadline, but actually added a body on the offensive side of the ball, Denny Carter, that is not stopping them from being home dogs versus the Browns. I talk about being home dogs to Trevor Lawrence, being a home dog to the Browns, of course. Infinitely worse. With A.D. Mitchell joining this very undermanned offense, does anything at all change? And why is the answer no? I don't know why I'm asking you this.
Well, I mean, Garrett Wilson should be back this week. He returned to practice on Wednesday. If you practice Wednesday, you probably play Sunday. So, when he plays, he sees so many of the targets and so many of the air yards that no one else can really get there. I don't think, you're not playing A.D. Mitchell, right?
No, you're adding him in 14-team leagues.
You
I forgot to see if I won my bids on him.
Yeah, I hope you did.
For your sake, I hope you didn't, buddy.
I need him bad.
Really I saw a quote actually from Mitchell that was a little concerning, but also maybe good for his production value. He was like, look, I've never liked anything else in my life but football. I hate school. I hated school. I didn't try in school.
I hate my job, which is football.
He's like, he said, I got to make this work. So
that's
kind of filed that away.
Yeah.
Real quick.
That's me driving best ball teams. Like, geez, I got to make this work. I hate my job. I hate school. Man,
I hate the people I work with.
Now we're every day talking to these losers.
The Jets allow the highest rate of yards after the catch by a good margin. So maybe Njoku and Fannin can both be.
Then he got real blurry when he was saying start Njoku. Kyle, what's the state of the Browns?
I think they're going to run the football a lot in this game. Dude, 2.5-point home underdogs to Dylan Gabriel. Come on.
Pack it up. Pack it up as a franchise. Come on.
Yeah. You should just have to give away Sauce Gardner. You don't get the picks in return. Just pack it up, man. To Denny's point, I think Njoku and Fannin can probably coexist. Notably, 2 weeks ago, they're coming off the bye, the Browns. Njoku only ran about half of the routes. He was coming off of an injury in that game. I would assume his route rate creeps up. And even though they have 2 tight ends, there is plenty of room for the route rate to creep up because they play a lot of 2 tight end. And when they don't, it's because Harold Fannin is playing slot. He's playing fullback. They just move him around like a queen chess piece. So I think you're ranking Fannin ahead of him, but I still think Njoku is vaguely startable in this game. I do think they're going to run the ball so much. This is a great spot for Quinshon Judkins. The Jets have faced one of the lowest pass rate over expecteds this year. They're 23rd in EPA per play allowed on the ground. They're really bad against the pass too, but I just don't think the Browns want to pass the football. So it's bordering on RB1 spot for Quinshon.
I think I've got him just inside the top 12. David Njoku deserved better. I wish he had been traded or wanted to be traded. I don't know.
Did you see the clip of him talking? He's
Wolf of Wall Street in Cleveland, Ohio. He doesn't want to leave Lake Erie. So to each their own. I say this as a fellow Midwesterner. Was kind of hoping he would get somewhere else. Harold Fannin wouldn't have to be fighting for these looks. We don't always get what we want in fantasy football. Tell you, not getting what you want is being the underdog to the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have somehow found a team whom the bookmakers believe is 5.5 points worse than they are, Denny. That would be the Saints. But what did and did not change in Tyler Shucks, even though it's spelled Show's debut under center?
After being crazy pass heavy in week 8, they were crazy run heavy in week 9, relatively. They were trying to feature Rashid Shaheed, I think, for the trade deadline. So they gave him 115 air yards to only 40 air yards for Chris Olave. Shaheed also led in targets by a pretty good margin, 9 targets to only 3 for.
Actually, a really good data point to file away because most people have to start Chris Olave. I had a league where I did not have to start him. I was like, man. So I guess is this just over?
Yeah, right. It looked over last week, but you take Shaheed out and you take the whole thing that they were trying to do where they're like, hey, this guy's good. Do you want him? And so Olave should, I think, dominate looks here. So I think you still find a way to throw him in your 12-team lineup.
You do. Curious. Denny didn't mention Taysom Hill. Haven't mentioned him one time all year, actually. Not come to think of it.
He's not running any routes. They're doing
they're doing a push to come. Why could that be?
He's still recovering. Give him a break.
I know, he probably is. It's unbelievable. They
Dude,
rushed him back so quickly.
He returned so fast.
Came back like faster than anyone. It's like, dude, you're 40.
I
Like,
know.
take your time. You can't get. Yeah, it was actually 73. I'm being fact checked by producer Adam. I knew it's always older than you think, but I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah.
Kyle, state of the Panthers, Rico Dowdle season, Tedderell McMillan. No, I say and anyone else, even though I know the answer is no. So
Answer is no. Answer is no. Man. Answer
Anything
is
to say?
absolutely no. Panthers are terrified of throwing the football right now. In the past 4 Bryce Young starts, pass rate over expected. These are all going to be under of negative 15%, negative 1%, then negative 10%, negative 10%. They've had 2 0 or positive, and I think the positive is like 1 or 2% pass rate over expected this year. Those are weeks 1 and 2. I think they learned pretty quickly that they're going to win games by running the football, and they eventually learned they're going to win games by running the football with Rico Dowdle, who outcarried Chuba Hubbard 25-5, if I remember correctly. Dowdle a little banged up. He was very clearly hurt last week, and just kept.
He also though he understood like he's Carson Wentz in a way. Like,
don't give it
if I
up,
come
man.
out of this game, they're not giving me another chance.
Yep, you don't give the job up. You grit your teeth and fight through it. And he left once near the end zone, and I was like, man, this is going to be a second touchdown, and he's banged up right now. Chuba got stuffed once or twice. Dowdle comes back and immediately scores.
Dowdle
Like,
hit the oxygen, came back and scored.
Dude, he hit the oxygen. He hit the smelling salts. They gave him a little smelling
Let me be
salts.
real. Hit the smelling salts. But
And so they held him out of practice on Wednesday, I believe. But Canales said it was precautionary adjacent, is what I call it. So I think he's still back. I still think he's getting a ton of work, especially as 5.5 point home favorites. Like 5.5 point home favorites is so crazy against any team. If you're the Carolina Panthers, it's so much that like Chuba Hubbard probably gets 7 touches in this game.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like Hubbard's in line. Maybe for 10 touches, it might get crazy.
I have Hubbard inside the top 40. I'm glad Denny got it. I saw him raise his finger earlier. I thought it was. I didn't know if he had thought of some Taysom Cope in the intervening 20 seconds.
I got
or
nothing.
something. Got nothing.
I do have Tuba Cope.
That's good. We got nothing left though because our show's over. We emptied it all out, left it all on the field, left it all on the site, on the YouTube page, NFL and NBC. Check out Denny's regression files. Check out his funnel report and matchups column on Friday. Check out Kyle's 10 stats. Check out his stardom sit-em. Check out my rankings. Check out our Monday and Tuesday shows. Check out Denny at 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday when he takes your questions live on the aforementioned NFL on NBC YouTube channel. So for Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you on Sunday evening.